Good morning. I'm Dawn, creator of the Wikipedia and Kitchen Witch Corner. And today I am going to talk to you about gardening for witches and other cunning folk. By cunning folk, I mean people who study and use magic or magic adjacent things. Um, Not necessarily, we're not all witches. I'm not even sure I'm technically a witch. That word has a lot of baggage that I'm not sure applies to me, though sometimes it does. I don't know. It's weird, it's complicated. Anyway, cunning folk, people who practice witchcraft, magic, hoodoo, um, conjure, any of that should garden if you can. If you can at all manage it, you should totally garden because it is going to help you with your magic. And I'm going to ask you to excuse me just a little bit today. I feel really rotten. I have an issue with sugar. Usually, I don't have any sugar in the morning. I usually don't have sugar until like later in the day because it knocks me out. I'm not like normal people. Sugar makes me so tired. Like, not even like a little bit tired, like Benadryl tired, like NyQuil tired. Sugar is, I usually have it in the afternoon with my, I usually avoid it until much later in the day. And then I have a nap before I have to get up to do my day job, which starts in the evening. It's my night day job. Coffee also does not help. My chemical receptors are not the same as other people's. But I drink it because I like it. It only has cream in it. It doesn't have sugar. I never put sugar in my coffee. Don't even have a sweet tooth. But this morning I felt like chocolate milk, and now I have regrets. Anyhow, two. After this, I will be taking a nap. I have notes. So, why you should garden if you practice magic in any capacity? Gardening is an amazing skill building exercise for anything that has to do with magic. And I'm just going to use witchcraft because it's easy and I'm having a hard time thinking. I'm just going to, that I mean all kinds of magic, whether it's witchcraft or not, but I'm going to say witchcraft because I'm used to it. It's a habit word. So gardening is a good witchcraft skill building exercise. Now, people come to me, they say, what should I learn as a new witch? And I say, you should learn to meditate. You need to learn about yourself. You need to learn to observe your energy and the energy of the world around you, how things fluctuate, how things change, because magic is changing those things. You need to be able to observe them first. First thing, observe. Um, Gardening is a wonderful witchcraft skill building activity. First of all, patient observation, an important skill. It's good. It's excellent for any kind of magic and also divination. It's wonderful for divination. The idea behind patient observation is that you're going to sit back and observe without judgment what's going on. You're going to gather all that information. You can make judgments later based on the information that you have gathered based on your observations. So when we're meditating, one of the reasons why meditation is so useful for the new witch is because it teaches you to observe what's going on inside you without judgment. And that sort of observation is going to help you to learn how you work. When a lot of people in this world, in general, have like knee-jerk reactions to things that happen without taking the time to observe like all the things that are going on around the the thing that you're reacting to. But if you observe the environment that this that surrounds this thing, you will often have a completely different reaction. um, and you may come up with new and better ways to deal with this situation. I can think there's a lot of different things examples rolling around in my head, but we're talking about gardening today. When you garden, there is no time, there's no place, I should say. There's plenty of time. Gardening takes forever. There is no place for jumping to conclusions about something without uh, calmly observing and assessing the situation. If your plant is not working out, it may be extremely obvious why, or you may need to take a minute. Your plant is not going to grow overnight. It's going to take a long time, and you have to keep watching it. You have to check on it and take care of it every day or every couple of days. And that requires a lot of patience, a witch should be patient. If you are working on your psychic abilities, this is going to be excellent for your psychic abilities. Another thing that I tell new witches, and developing witches, is that we all need to observe our energy and the energy around us. And on the basic level, it's because, when we cast a spell, we are changing our energetic situation consciously. So it helps us to be able to like look at that energy and see what's going on with it before we do that. Now, I understand that there are pre-written spells. There are tools that allows us to do these things without these basic um, underlying principles. But to really develop your witchcraft, and it helps. And after you've been practicing witchcraft for a while, and using these tools, sometimes you want to go a little deeper. I think that people should start at the bottom and go up, but some people start in the middle and then go deeper. And that's fine too, however you want to do that. But being able to make those energetic connections between us and other people and the world at large and other things is uh, not just practically useful from the spellcasting point of view, but it's very spiritually fulfilling. Now, when you are gardening, all those connections are there on a micro level. It's within your garden, but also your garden is connected to everything else. And in parallel with, perhaps your witchcraft journey, most people start gardening with the plants. They plant a plant. Maybe they plant it from the seed. Maybe they get a plant that's already grown. They stick it in the dirt. Very rarely do people start gardening by learning soil science. But soil science, you get there eventually. I mean, if you're planting outdoors, especially, you are going to get there eventually because um, ultimately it comes down to the dirt. And even when you're planting indoors, your soil needs to be good. Your plant's not going to grow. But soil is all about how your plant is connected to the entire world. Like there's microbes in there. There's fungus, mycorrhizae that connects to everything else. And then, we talk about respiration. All of this obviously the first time you plant a garden. You don't have to think about all these things. You don't have to think about any of these things to. I'm gonna sneeze. I'm not. You don't have to think about all of these things to plant a garden, but they're there, and if you want to go deeper, you can learn these things, and they correspond with the energetic connections that we're dealing with in a magical practice or a psychic exploration. These things are parallels. You can learn these things alongside together, and they help each other make sense. So I definitely recommend if you're learning takes you that way, if your path takes you in that direction, to look to your garden for guidance there. Um, Everything is interconnected. Your garden is interconnected with your neighbor's garden, for better or worse, unfortunately. um, another reason why I think all cunning folks should garden is because we a lot of folks um, use herbs in your magic. Even if you're not a kitchen witch, you're often using an herb, some sort of plant material in your gardening. And sometimes we're using crystals as well. And gardening involves minerals, and crystals are minerals. So all of that can totally relate. But when we're talking about herbs, people are always asking me, well, what herb is good for this and what herb is good for that? But if you grow a bunch of herbs in your garden, you'll already know, after a couple of years, you will know instinctively without being asked, without being told. You watch this herb grow. You know its personality. You know its smell. You know how it makes you feel. When we talk about how herbs correspond to elements or planets, and we're using those energies in our magic, if we are, then a lot of those correspondence has to do with how the plant actually grows, like the environment that it grows in. Um, does it like moist soil? Does it grow up in does it grow quickly? Does it scramble along the ground? Does it have thorns? Does it grow in places nothing else will grow? All of these are taken into consideration when we're thinking about whether or not this plant is a Venus plant or a moon plant or a Saturn plant. And if we're going to bring that energy into our spell work, um, knowing the plant from the time that it is a seed or a young plant, and spending time tending it, breathing it in, sharing its air and its space, um, really helps you to know, like, what you can do with that plant. Like, you think about, I need this, and you're thinking about the plants in your garden, it'll come to you. Um, so we I definitely recommend, if you use herbs in your practice, that if there's some that you use often, that you try to grow them, get to know them from seed to harvest, and that will really really enhance your magic and your enjoyment and the satisfaction you get um, from your magic, from your practice. And I think gardening is more fun when you're a witch too than when you're not, you know. I know a lot of folks, I talk to a lot of people about gardening and about food because, I'm obsessed with these things. And I hear people often say, well, there's no point in growing that because you can buy it for cheap at the store. It's super cheap. Like, why would I waste my space in my garden to grow that? And it's like, well, because it's an awesome little plant. And, you know, and what if you can't get to the store? And I use it all the time. So I'm definitely going to grow this particular plant. Um, Everybody's going to grow their garden according to their own needs. I find that as a witch, as someone who views gardening as a spiritual activity, that I feel like I get a lot more fulfillment out of it than perhaps somebody who just grows their garden for utilitarian purpose. I mean, I grew up with parents who garden. They obviously enjoy their gardens. They enjoy the food that comes from it. They do not buy tomatoes anywhere because they garden. They have their own tomatoes they grow, and they are the only tomatoes suitable for eating. Um, but they're not like personally. I don't know. It's almost like they don't like have a personal relationship with the garden. They are not out there talking. I don't know. I feel like as a witch, gardening is just so much more meaningful than it is if you're just utilitarian. Doing it as a spiritual activity is extraordinarily meaningful. And I'm also I have some personal peculiarities. I don't like to do things that don't have a practical um, application. So, like, I like to read nonfiction books. Sometimes I'll read like historical fiction. If I'm reading fantasy, then I am doing it to kind of work out a background for a game that I'm running because that's what I do for my day job. Um, it's all going to be like practical applications, gathering knowledge or putting. So you know, my hobby is of course going to be something that feels practical to me. And the final reason why you should garden if you are a witch, because gardening is good for the environment and your community. Um, every little bit of food that you produce yourself, or not just food, I mean, it could be medicine, it could be magical implements, magic herbs, things for food, medicine, magic, whatever you're growing for. Everything that you grow yourself is something that you're not going to the store to buy. It's something that didn't get shipped on a big truck and use a lot of fossil fuels. It is something that didn't get grown in a monoculture, a huge, giant monoculture field. Uh, these monoculture fields are essentially deserts. Think about, you know, a field of corn. At any time, think about being a bee going across, trying to get from point A to point B across a field of corn or lawn, for that matter. Like, there's no place to, except maybe, you know, there's going to be weeds and stuff. But the farmers are always trying to get rid of those weeds. You're going across this desert. There's no place to stop and have a snack, except perhaps at very certain specific times of the year. Now, if you are growing enough corn for your own family in like maybe a 10 by 10 or 20 by 20 patch in your yard, if you've got the space, corn is probably a bad example because I don't have the space for corn and I have an acre. Um, I try, but it's not enough for the year. So you're growing like a 20 by 20 or 10 by 10 patch of corn that is surrounded by other stuff, you know, for those pollinators, those that wild um, creatures to, get past. It's not a huge desert, it's just a little patch. It's enough for your family. That corn isn't getting shipped on a truck that's using petroleum. That corn is not using generalist pesticides and herbicides, because, you are taking the time to figure out exactly what your corn needs and what is bothering it and what isn't, and you're only treating things as they come up, hopefully. Um, and not only that, but it is going to taste good. So good. You're going to Corn and tomatoes are two things that, like, you do not even know what they taste like until you grow your own or buy them directly from the farm. So so it's definitely worth it from an environmental standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from a taste standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. It's good for your spiritual growth. It's good for your connection to the earth. If you celebrate, for example, the traditional Sabbats, that much of American witchcraft, or witchcraft in general, has inherited from the Western European sort of organized Wicca type witchcraft. If you're celebrating those Sabbats, those are agricultural festivals. So even if you're growing one or two crops, those are going to sort of correspond to to these festivals that you're going to be celebrating, that you are celebrating with your group or your family. And you can say, okay, well, as part of my spring equinox ritual, I am planting these tomato seeds. And as part of my Beltane ritual, I am putting these tomato seeds in the ground. First, you're going to plant them indoors, get them nice and strong. And as your Beltane ritual, I'm going to plant them in the ground. And then, as, I don't know, part of my midsummer ritual, I am going to fertilize them. And then we have first harvest, or Lunasa or Lamas. I am going to possibly pick my first tomato of the year and make my first tomato dish, which I'm going to eat as part of my festival. And then for the autumn equinox, I am going to spend the day canning. I mean, in addition to the rest of your stuff, I am going to be tasting my first canned or otherwise preserved tomatoes. And then we are going to make green tomato salsa, because it's going to get cold at some point. You got to rescue those green tomatoes. So you're going to make green tomato salsa, which is going to be amazing as a condiment throughout the winter. So you can maybe add in bulk, break that out to remind yourself that spring is coming and winter is almost here. So so definitely, I mean, there's just so many reasons why you should garden if you're a witch, even if you're just growing a tomato in a bucket. And you can grow a tomato in a bucket. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. I will be back on Monday, and I am going to talk about activism, environmental activism in witchcraft, which, by the way, is huge if you're not aware, and it has been for some time. So I'm actually doing quite a bit of research on that, and it's very fascinating. So I will talk to you about that on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. It snowed today, so like all that lovely spring like weather we had last week is come to an end. But hopefully next week it'll be warm again. I'm super excited for spring, and I if you have any questions, again, put your questions in the comments or check me out on the Discord. And I will be happy to answer your questions on the next chat, and I'll also respond to you directly. I always do. All right. Good night. Goodbye.